Seven PM, ready when you guys are. All right, welcome to the July 25th, 2019 Village of Webster Board meeting. It will include our annual organizational meeting as well as discussion on a couple of local laws and then our regular business. So if you would stand with me, please. Jew, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. This evening, our first order of business is the organizational meeting for 2019 and 20. I will go down through here, and I'm sorry it may be a little tedious with motion and seconds, but we need to do so. First of all is the mayor's appointment, which is not subject to board approval. I appoint Jerry Abolito Jr. as deputy mayor to act as mayor when the mayor or myself cannot fulfill my duties. Okay. Now into board designations. Canandaigua National Bank to be designated as the official bank of the village of Webster. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
I will do that.
I'm sorry.
Designate the Webster Herald as the official newspaper of the village of Webster.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now on to major mayor's appointments subject to approval of the Board of Trustees. First of all, I would reappoint Heather Halstead as village clerk and Joe O'Neill as deputy village clerk for a term ending on July 6, 2021.
I'll make that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Reappoint Joe O'Neill as deputy village treasurer for a term ending on July 7th, 2020.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Appoint Marcia Adams as village treasurer for a term ending on July 6th, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And reappoint Don White as Village Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals attorney for a period ending July 7th, 2020, and authorize the mayor to sign the retainer agreement with Kelly White on a Frio Attorneys LLP.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Planning and Zoning Board. Reappoint Chris Krawick, chairperson of the Planning Board for a term ending July 7, 2020, and reappoint Mark Nicholson, chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a period of time ending July 7, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Reappoint Michael O'Connor, member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, for a term ending July 1st, 2024. And reappoint Peter Bowers, member of the Planning Board of Appeals, for a term ending July 1st, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. This is for the Historic Preservation Commission. We first of all ask for a reappointment of Lynn Barton as village historian for a term ending July 7th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now, reappointment of Peter Elder as chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission for a term ending July 7th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Opposed? Motion carried. Reappoint Ed Atkinson, member of the Historic Preservation Commission, for a term ending July 1st, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Is there a
Motion
possible?
carried. Does anybody know, is Ed still traveling?
Yeah. Yeah, he's still doing
Same part.
Yeah.
Will it continue through this year, next year?
I don't know, do you know?
This year.
It's this year.
He's
I
supposed to
think.
be done this fall, so September, October timeframe.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise,
Exactly.
next appointments to Park and Recreation Committee. First is to reappoint Peter Elder to the Parks and Recreation Committee for a term ending July 7th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Appoint Missy Rosenberry, which is a nice addition, on the Parks and Recreation Committee for a term ending July 7th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Business Improvement District. This is to appoint the following people to serve on the Business Improvement District Board of Directors for a term ending July 7th, 2020. Mayor Byerts, Trustee Lancy, and Gordon Clark.
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would also just make a note there that Carl has volunteered to take, should I not be able to go, to take my place. Okay? Did you catch that? I'll tell you later. Ethics Committee. First of all, to reappoint Trustee Ippolito, Village Board Member, to the Ethics Committee. Finally, our next, reappoint Joe O'Neill, Village Employee, to the Ethics Committee. And finally, to reappoint Tom Cipolla, Village Resident, to the Ethics Committee, ending July 7th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is General Office. This is the motion to set the mileage reimbursement for authorized village employees traveling with their private vehicle to be 58 cents per mile.
Make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Next, we have the setting of village hours. I will read these, bear with me. The village office hours shall be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., except Thursdays, which is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The village will be closed Saturday and Sunday. The office will be closed for all governmental holidays. Additionally, The office will be closed Tuesday before Christmas, December 24th, 2019, Good Friday, April 10th, 2020, July 2nd and 3rd, interesting, for the 2020 4th of July holiday. Is that on a Saturday?
Yes.
The village office will be closed Thursday, July 9th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. for the Fireman's Parade, and Friday after Thanksgiving, November 27, 2020. And the Thursday before Christmas, which is on a Saturday, it's on a Friday. Before Christmas, December 24th. So can I have a motion to approve those?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The following 2019-2020 Village of Webster policies are adopted as written in these sections of policy manual and shall be effective June 1st, 2019. The only one I believe that we need to approve tonight is the procurement policy, sections 5.2. I don't believe that it needs any changes presently, but we need to approve that. So I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is village meetings. The village meeting will be conducted according to section 2.2 of the policy manual. Regular village board meetings will be the second and fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. Meetings of the planning board will be on the first Thursday and zoning board of appeals on the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. Village board workshop meetings, and let's announce the new change, will be on the first Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Change the following meeting dates. The village board workshop meetings will be changed from November 5th, 2019, and that will be moved to October 29th, 2019. I believe that November 5th was election day. November 28th will be moved to November 26th. That's from a Thursday to the Tuesday. And May 5th, 2020, moved to April 28th, 2020. And change the following meeting dates for the village board. That will be a change from November 28th to November 26th, 2019. That's for Thanksgiving vacation.
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Following board liaison assignments, they are listed here, and I will not go through and read them all, but you've had a chance to look at them. I don't know if any of you have anything other than Carl, you had a request to, I think we already did that with the,
I don't think that they're.
no, that's not on here, but the business district. So does anybody have a question on these? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept in a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, our next organizational meeting, looking ahead. Next organizational meeting will occur on Tuesday, July 7th, 2020, prior to the regularly scheduled village board meeting.
Yeah.
That's a long ways off, but I'll hear a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I did not want to take the time to read through all of the village board liaison assignments, but if you are interested as general public in them, they will be posted. I suppose we could put them on our website so that they are available for all of you to see. Okay. It is now exactly 7:15, so I would like to move now to any comments that people may have, questions or concerns on local law number 2 of 2019, which is entitled, quote, "The addition of no parking areas upon Lion Drive, Kircher Park, and Baker Street." Oh. And I guess I need a motion to open up the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that is now open for discussion. If anybody has any comments, any concerns, any questions regarding proposed law number 2 of 2019. I would say that the area that this covers on
Kircher, Lyons, and
Kircher
Baker.
and Baker are at the curves coming down to that segment that goes along the 104. Okay, so that's at the curve. Basically, there's been some problems with parking on the curb. That prohibits people that are coming in both directions at the same time from necessarily seeing each other. So to remedy that at the curb, there will be no parking. Questions? Yes.
Are you taking comments up there? Oh.
Peter Elder, 59. Peter Elder, 59 Dunning Avenue. I just wanted to say that having been a 10-year resident at 109 Baker, I think this is an excellent idea. There are a number of times that we saw cars barely missing one another, and not for the fault of people wanting to walk the trail, because that's what it's there for, but just they parked way too close to the curb, and especially as we went down Lion Drive to Kircher and went around that corner, it got particularly difficult. So this is a good, I think a good safety measure for those streets, and I encourage the board to pass it. I think you're probably all inclined, but I'd like to tell you that somebody who's lived there, I think it'd be a great asset to the people who live there now. So thank you.
I agree. When I lived on Solori Court, that was horrible down through there. Yeah, so I think we're saving lives.
Richard Walter, 20 Elm Street. I also agree that this is a very good measure and a good idea, and I would encourage the board to look at another intersection in the village, and that is the intersection of Elm Street and Lapham Park, as people park very close on Elm Street to Lapham. With the island there, it becomes practically difficult to get around that corner with anything bigger than a motorcycle at times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good point.
Anyone else? Then at this point, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're not going to vote on that local law tonight, but we will take the comments into consideration, and that will be on the agenda for next week. All right. I think that at this time, because it is listed for 7:30, discussion on our local law number 1. We will move to a presentation from Matt Chatfield. So Matt, from the Webster Economic Development Alliance, has a presentation to make.
Do you all? I think so. I know. Do you gentlemen want a handout?
Thank you.
Would you like a handout?
Thank you.
Everyone? All right, thank you for the time this evening. Yeah, my name is Matt Chatfield. I am the Executive Director of the Webster Economic Development Alliance, a public-private partnership composed of the town of Webster, the village of Webster, the school district, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Business Improvement District here in our community. As the Executive Director and essentially I'm the only staff of the Alliance, I'm charged with promoting and coordinating economic development and job creation within the Webster community. And periodically what I do is I go out and I attempt to bring funding into the community for economic development or community development projects that are to the benefit of the community itself. Successfully in the past, we brought in funding for improvements on North Avenue. That was $811,000 of federal transportation monies, which got us the sidewalks, the streetlights, the brand new gateway improvements at both the Orchard Street intersection and of course the interchange with Route 104. In addition, we've also brought in some additional transportation funding to the town of Webster. They're currently in the engineering phases of sidewalk and bicycle lane improvements on Ridge Road, extending from Rachel Drive, which is just outside the western boundary of the village, and traveling westward to 5 Mile. So, and that was about $1.5 million of federal transportation. And I bring up those two projects in particular because we're in the process of going after additional state and federal funds for transportation improvements in our industrial area in the community. Let me see if I can bring this up on the screen here. So the project area in particular encompasses the majority of the Xerox campus. The majority of the Xerox campus today is private roadways. Actually, all of the Xerox campus right now is private roadways. And to facilitate enhanced economic development and reuse of vacant and abandoned buildings and lands, the Alliance is proposing to the village that some of these roadways, in particular Orchard Street, okay, the extension of Orchard Street, San Jose Drive, and then Mitchell Dean, as well as Panama Road. We're proposing that the village consider taking dedication of these private roadways as public thoroughfares, and then being able to open up industrial development within the campus, the core area of the campus, that would then permit buildings and lands along those corridors to now front on a public thoroughfare. And when they front on a public corridor, it makes them much more likely to be either divested or reused, creating jobs and economic benefits to the community. So the goal here is, can we identify state and federal funding resources to help rehabilitate those roads prior to them entering into the public domain? The condition of the roads is fair to poor. When assessed by Labella Associates back in 2017, there's a standard rating system that's developed for all transportation resources. It's a scale of 1 to 10, with obviously 10 being a brand new road and 1 being essentially a failing road. The roadways on the campus average to about 4. So they are fair to poor in condition. And the study suggested that partial rehabilitation and spot reconstruction would be necessary in many instances. for these roadways. We conducted an analysis of that. The roadways, we'll zoom in here. You can see on the screen, it would be figure 4 in the packet. So Mitchell Dean, San Jose Drive, Orchard Street, Panama, just so you have a better understanding of the corridors. They're largely the primary ones, with the goal being that they would facilitate accessibility and mobility through the campus, as well as opportunities to develop sites that are along those roadways by private interests. And for the most part, this is actually for interests that would be other than Xerox Corporation. Xerox Corporation is in the process of consolidating its operations onto the campus. And our goal is to then leverage the existing assets, infrastructure, buildings, and bring new investment and businesses into the community that will create jobs, both direct jobs and induced and indirect jobs in our community with support services and other areas of their supply chain. So then that is the primary goal for this effort. This effort has nothing to do with assisting Xerox in their direct, essentially as a subsidy to Xerox directly. This is a long-term strategy to sustain economic development in Webster, both town and village. And then as part of this longer-term phase, it is being at least considered that some potential like, small roadway segments could be extended in the town of Webster that connect the campus roadway system, particularly on the west Chowda Drive extension to Route 250, which is about 950 linear feet, very short connection on town only, and an extension of Bolter Industrial Park westward to Salt Road at an intersection with Mitchell Dean, which would then provide us a full corridor traveling from Route 250 eastward to Basket Road, connecting not only the job creation and employment district here on the campus, but also linking all of the recreational assets that we have in this area, in particular the town's recreation center. And then there is the Yankee Stadium turf field that the school district recently purchased, as well as the private 10 regulation field soccer complex that's also off of Basket Road. These are all major destinations within our community, yet they're very difficult to access and get to as they currently are, as the roadways are currently standing. So the goal is, can we enhance access to them? And in the process, the current project that is being proposed for the enhancement of Mitchell Dean in particular would include a shared use bike path, hopefully it's being proposed along the south side of Mitchell Dean. That could then potentially be extended along Chowda, and then of course across to Bolter Industrial Park. So now we're talking about physically linking bicycle and peds across the community and through this area that is, for the most part, is an unsafe area for bikes and pedestrians to travel now. But it would be a very beneficial link. And as part of our analysis, you can go to, in your packet, it's probably the second to last page, called the preliminary estimate of cost. So you can understand the activities that are being proposed to be funded by state and federal and then private resources. Pavement rehabilitation activities, center medians, lane reduction, the concept would be, can we enhance these business corridors to make them more enjoyable, more, you would beautify them. Obviously, the purpose is to attract business and investment, and with the roadways in their current condition, constructed in 1972 and 1973, they're very unappealing in today's current marketplace. They're just not, it doesn't provide a campus atmosphere that most people would be interested in working. And it is difficult to both attract and retain qualified talent for Xerox and for any business in that corridor based on just the physical setting of the campus. This project is one effort to improve upon that. Street lighting, and then of course there would be ancillary underground utility improvements for the project itself. It's estimated currently with a 20% contingency that total project cost is around $9.2 million. And the majority of that is proposed to come from federal transportation resources. We attempted to submit an application this summer, in the beginning of the month. Unfortunately, we were unable to fully get the application finalized and submitted to within the litany of red tape in the federal government as far as their award management system, their contract management system. That being said, the application that we put together is only to the benefit of our application for the Empire State Development Funds, which is due tomorrow. Okay, so our intention is to submit a grant application tomorrow for just over $1.8 million to get the ball rolling. And that ball rolling would be engineering, analysis, and also some short-term stabilization activities, crack sealing, micro paving, any sort of spot reconstruction to prevent the further deterioration of those corridors prior to them.
Did the Empire
being-
State, how much was that, 1 point?
So 1.838
Okay.
million. And if we go to the last page of your packet, it spells it out. The very bottom, total project cost 9.2, that's projected. That includes a 20% contingency on construction, based on our engineering estimates. The build 2020 assistance, that would be federal government funding of 6.8 million. The minimum application for that program is 5 million. You can't even ask for less than $5 million. You can't be awarded more than 25 million. So an application for 6.8 million isn't out of the realm of possibility. The New York State ESD grant, that's the grant we will be submitting tomorrow, is 1.838 million. And then there's a line item for private funding, which would be funding provided by either Xerox Corporation and/or any other future owners of lands in that general vicinity. So as you can see, it is not proposed at all for local tax dollars to be spent towards this effort. The local tax dollars will be spent in the long term as these roads are maintained and brought into the public realm and added to the current number that the village right now on average, it's about $30,000 per lane mile. And maybe that cost can get brought down. I know the town has a little bit lower of a cost per lane mile for their maintenance and overall management of the roadway system. So somewhere in there's going to be a happy medium. And long term, that's the cost to the community, with the goal of that being offset by added jobs, added increased property values, and then of course some tax benefits that go along with that as those properties come back in to being productive use. So I just wanted to make the board aware of the activities that we're undertaking on behalf of the village. I also wanted to open this up for opportunities for either public comment and of course board comment and questions regarding the application and the process.
Yeah, I drove down there
I did too.
just to go through all the different roads. I mean, I worked there 30 years, and I could not believe the disrepair that was there. I mean, I even went into the parking lots and everything, so there was a huge amount that needs to be done. And if we're going to get industry back in here, we need to do something. So, yeah, anything that we can do.
I have a question regarding the roads and rehabilitating the roads. Are we looking at maintaining the same width? Are we going to narrow the roads so there's less asphalt?
I think that it would be anticipated that a lane reduction or a road diet could be feasible based on the final engineering solution. Obviously, my background is in as a landscape architect or urban planner. I spent 14 years in construction consulting, so I'm very good at doing estimating for these types of projects and writing the grants, but I don't pretend to be the actual transportation engineer. So my goal and hope would be that we could do a lane reduction or a roadway diet. The roadways are very wide,
Yes.
as they are now. There's some roads that are, it's 60 feet for 2 lanes or 60 feet for 3 lanes. They are industrial roads, and you want to be able to provide access for large vehicles.
That was all the trucks.
But the standard that they're constructed to now doesn't even meet the public standard, so and there's no reason we wouldn't be able to hopefully narrow that up. Which also saves money.
So the 1.8 is something that we would be looking to get to the grant tomorrow.
Correct.
And then we would reapply or apply for the rest.
In a year's time.
Next cycle.
In a year's time. Yeah, the goal is, although we were unsuccessful in applying, right now we were really trying to shoot for the moon, to be perfectly honest. We were trying to apply for state and federal all at once. And it was very unlucky, to be honest, to get the federal funds, because I don't think we had enough homework done. But with the engineering analysis and a lot of the environmental review that would take place early on with this first set of grant funds, I think we would be in a much better position to be awarded those federal ones.
Okay, is there a time frame on that one? That one grant that you were talking about?
The federal grant?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
time, yeah.
So, well, I mean, I know that our hope is that the same funding program will be available next year. Sometimes in the federal government it is or it isn't, but I do know that the House of Representatives just passed a budget funding measure today. It should go to the Senate. It would be an additional $320 million in domestic spending, of which $1 billion of that would go directly into this program. This program was funded at $900 million this year. So the proposal on the table would be to fund the same program at $1 billion next year, so there'd be another $100 million available. So the hope is that we would still hit the window at the most opportune time when funding will be there.
Thank you.
When will we know if we receive this?
The New York State, the Empire State Development Grant would get submitted tomorrow, and we would be notified likely in the first or second week of December of this year. And then from there, the Empire State Development sends out an incentive contract, and then we go through that process.
How competitive are these?
Very. Luckily, we've been working very closely with our counterparts at the state government level on this topic, and our federal partners. They're very aware of what our efforts are, and very supportive of it. So we're hoping we have some people on that point.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Does anybody?
Did we want to open it up for comments from the public?
Yeah.
Anybody have any comments? Good thing. Great thing, actually.
Yeah.
I like the idea that it opens up everything for us. We're preparing everything for.
Well, that's what you need.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, you need it.
All right.
Nice job, man.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes.
Appreciate that. And
Yeah, keep us informed.
you,
Of course.
you have things written, or are you ready to come all tonight? For tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I'll need to talk to you about the final. We got to press a couple buttons tomorrow, but everything is complete.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate your efforts. And a great opportunity to open up the Xerox complex. All right, past 7:30, so I would like to open the public hearing on proposed local law number 1. Local law number 1 for 2019 is entitled The Village of Webster, entitled General and Specific Requirements for Wireless Communications Facilities. So do I have a motion to open the public meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So at this point, we would entertain any comments from the floor regarding this proposed local law.
Matt Chatfield, 62 Park Avenue in the Village of Webster, and Executive Director of the Webster Economic Development Alliance. I haven't had a chance, to be honest, to read this particular local law, so it's more of a comment than a question regarding the actual law. And maybe it's even more of a concern. The concern that I have, and that I'm wondering if it's going to be addressed, maybe if not our purview to address it at the village level, maybe it needs to be something addressed at the state level. It is the, right now, cable revenues through the franchise agreement are something that local governments rely on as part of their funding. And as the cable companies continue to obviously dwindle in their influence, I believe that these franchise agreements are going to be something that are going to start to go away. And I'm concerned about, they might not go away today. Or maybe those agreements should be, maybe new agreements need to be struck up with other users of the public right-of-way when they start putting infrastructure in the public right-of-way. And they're basically doing it without any benefit, direct monetary benefit to the public. Cable companies weren't allowed to do this 35, 40 years ago. I don't understand why the wireless carriers should be allowed to get off scot-free, and then all of those, I mean, I'm not, what is the funds for the village budget? I know the town's like $600,000. What is it here in the village? How much, is there a shared franchise agreement? Do we know what that is?
With cable companies?
Correct. It's just something that I wanted to bring up, because I think most people aren't thinking about the fact that those franchise agreements very well might end up going away, and that source of revenue would also go away. And it's just something that's been in my craw about these small cell wireless carriers using the public right-of-way. If they had to pay to put up towers like the actual wireless companies did, it'd be a whole completely different story of them putting up their private infrastructure. But they're using essentially public assets.
I'm looking to piggyback on what's already there.
Well, they are and they aren't using public assets. Some of these small cell facilities are going to be put on utility poles that are not in the public right away. And it's different than a franchise with the cable companies. They were given the exclusive right to run cable throughout the municipality. There's 3 wireless companies, the major ones, so you can't have a franchise because there's 3 of them. You're not giving anybody the exclusive right to do wireless over the air.
Correct.
So you can't charge a franchise fee. As far as what the municipality can charge for their equipment in the right-of-way, the federal government, the FCC, has already said the maximum is $270 a year.
Per site?
Per
Sites
facility.
up to 5, they're up to 5.
Right.
On that side.
Up to 5, so
You can only charge for 5.
it was $270 and it covers up to 5. So for every set of 5, it's $270. If you have, 500 of them,
Gotcha.
well, okay.
And it's
So your gripe might be better addressed to your federal partners.
Well, I think that was, my gripe was not with the village government, to say that they weren't doing what they could do. My gripe was that this is something that should be
The
thought about.
FCC has taken away much of local government's purview over this entire area. So if you read the proposed local law, the village is trying to do what they can. Basically, the village can still regulate aesthetics, how they look. Not necessarily where they go, but how it looks where they end up. And that's what this is doing.
Good, well, thank you.
I would read a little bit more of this. Proposes to establish standards for the siting, design, permitting, maintenance, and use of communication facilities within the village of Webster. And said local law seeks to accommodate the need for wireless communication facilities while regulating their location and numbers so as to ensure provision of necessary services. So we're trying to stay a little bit ahead of just companies coming in and throwing them up all over the place, which in fact they can do.
Well, I guess more to the point, in the continued budgeting cycles, please don't rely on any funds coming from those franchise agreements with the cable operators, because
Well,
my concern is that they will be going.
getting less and
Yeah.
less, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
We just figured we had to start somewhere.
Oh, no, this is great.
Those companies have a tendency to overbuild. As far as a retired telephone engineer that dealt with them, and said this before, that a good example is on the corner of Corning and Corning Park and Sanford. There's a unit right there and a pole right on the corner. You'll see that no matter where those units are, those small units are there, you'll see that same deal where they got it up to the top and the cables run down to a centralized transformer or whatever. It's right there. So every pole that they're on, you'll see that. And I don't think that they're going to be looking for permits for everything to do. Once they get one permit, then they're going to go. And cable TV and everyone else has overbuilt telephone.
I will say,
You see these
Carol,
boxes all over the place.
so far, I think Verizon's been the #1 company coming in. They've been excellent at communicating and letting me know and asking me whether something needs a permit or doesn't need a permit and so on. The problem I have right now is if it's in the right of way, there's no tax ID to have a permit for that. So that's the only struggle I have right now. Once we pass this local law, that will change. But as far as, communication and everything, they've been great at letting me know and asking me if they need a permit or if it needs to come to, and they've been wondering how long it's going to take for us to pass this law. So,
We've been through a number of revisions.
So everyone had a TV antenna on top of their house, in the 50s, and that was ugly too, so. it doesn't
And
really
radio.
matter.
everyone ham radio.
In order to have 5G, they're not gonna care what it looks like still. Oh, absolutely, you have to bring it.
This is just our small start.
It is.
All right, well, if there are no comments, we will close the public portion of the hearing, public hearing. Do I have a motion to close?
Now make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, and at this point, we will entertain public comment. Open it up for anyone who would like to address the board this evening or public comment.
Yes, I'm back up here again, but this time it's as Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. So I'm Peter Elder, 59 Dunning Avenue, and I want to just do two things if I could tonight. First is I want to thank the board for their support of the kiosk agreement with the Friends of Webster Trails. Believe it or not, I always used to say, I can't believe how many things come in on a board day. Well, it actually came in today. So we have the signed agreement with the Friends of Webster Trails. And so I just want to let you know that we do own it now. What I'm planning on doing this weekend is going down there and putting a temporary trail map, and then I was going to talk to Jake about what we could do to get something there for this summer and fall, because it is getting later in the year, so I don't know how much we want to do for this season in terms of permanence, but certainly we could do something down there and then plan for something more, something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for next year. So I do have copies of those, and I'll hand them out, I guess, at the end of the meeting to make it easy, and then I'll give the original to the clerk, and then a couple of you guys can take them, and that way there's a couple of other copies floating out there. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about was the Edna Struck Memorial. I want to thank Don, because I called him today to give him a heads up and about the code, and I hope we helped, but we both were hoping to read the code a little bit to make sure I was right about what was in there. It appears, because this is a local landmark, it occurs under the Historic Preservation section, and in order for the Historic Preservation Commission to act on that island, we need to get in what's called a certificate of appropriateness in from the owner of the property. Oddly enough, the owner of that property is the village of Webster, which means that we have to have the board somehow submit an application, certificate of appropriateness, to the Historic Preservation Commission. So what I did is I figured it would be easier if I acted as the initial impetus to that, because it would help get it going. So if there's 4 pages, if we could pass these down, I think there's enough for everybody. If you just take 4 and pass it along. So what I did here is, this is actually not an original form here. I actually got it from the city of Rochester. I called Will and said, "Hey, Will, we have a certificate of appropriateness in here in the office." He's like, "No, go find one." So I found one. And it's local, so I figured why not use that. So what I did here is, as you get it, you'll see the first page is the actual application. It would require the village to sign, the mayor to sign it, so you can forward it on to the Historic Preservation Commission. Then the second page is the proposed redesign, basically showing the 2 trees on the end and the planting areas there as well. A narrative description of that appears on the front page. Don, did I not make enough for you? Yeah, okay, great. All right, so the narrative is on the front page to give you a sense of what that would look like from a word perspective, but the picture's worth 1,000 words here. This proposal would be the village's proposal to the Historic Preservation Commission. At that point, the Historic Preservation Commission has to hold a public hearing, and then the Historic Preservation Commission would take comments at that hearing, and then is allowed to amend it under the village code to make a final determination as to the landmark's eventual look. So that's why I wanted to get this ball rolling, but I really need your input as to adjusting what I put together, hopefully for you to look at for your consumption. So, and then the last 2 pages are just the code, which appears under chapter 175 under the zoning, which is really 175, 49 through 51. So if you have any questions, like I said, I wanted to make sure I gave Don a heads up so he could answer any questions that might pop up. This is an unusual occurrence that really hasn't happened before, but it's good to get ourselves in practice just in case, and I think we want to do it right the first time. So anyways, I would encourage you to take a look, and maybe if you were inclined, put this on the agenda for sometime in August, maybe the 1st or 2nd meeting latest, because one of the things that we've talked about with every single landscape arborist is that we want to get these plantings in the fall, and September is closer than it looks. So, and I know it's not, I know Heather's shaking her head, I agree, but it's coming. So we want to make sure we can act on this before the snow starts falling. One of the proposals I'll point out was it was in our bid, was that we would dig out, hopefully Jake is okay with this, we dig out most if not all of the existing dirt to put new soil in there. And because the soil there, according to the analysis, was a little tired, and if that's the case, that's going to take time. So we do need some time to get this done.
For the flowering trees?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether or not the board is okay with flowering trees or not. Right now in the description, it calls for non-flowering trees, because I spoke with the mayor about this. But as I said, the way the procedure is in the code, we have to have a public hearing anyways. So if the public hearing comes back and people are overwhelmingly in favor of flowering trees, then we can make a determination at that point. But I'm trying to make something that you guys are comfortable enough with to pass on to us. So that's why I'm gonna kind of ask you to take a look at it as a group and then give us your decision as a, I guess probably as a motion, which would be to refer it to the Historic Preservation Commission for their review. Make sense?
Yes.
Sir.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Maybe I'll move there. Because I don't get an input because I don't live here.
Anyone else who would like to address?
That's correct. You don't walk past them, don't worry.
That was good.
All right, then I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Before we go on any further, I would like to introduce our village treasurer. So, if you would like to stand, or if you would like to make any comment.
Well, you want me to come up here?
Not to put you on the spot.
Oh, not at all.
You'll get used to it.
My name is Marcia Adams. I'm so happy to be part of the village government. I'm really excited about it. And yeah, it's been interesting to, after spending the last couple days in the weeds trying to figure out the accounts and everything, to come here and see what it is I'm going to be supporting is really nice. So thank you all, and I feel so happy to be here.
Thank you, Marcia.
Sure.
Just yesterday and today.
Yeah.
Definitely getting your feet immersed.
Yes.
pretty
Yes,
quickly.
she is.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Thank you, Marcia.
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll move now to village business, and the first is resolution to approve the minutes of June 27th, 2019. Have a chance to look those over.
I did.
Yep.
What's that pump repair from Coaster? For $555.
We're not doing,
The treasurer's here now.
we're not there yet.
We'll be there in a minute. You're ready.
He's on the ball.
All right, and I would accept the motion to approve the minutes of June 27th, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the resolution to approve claims and warrants.
Go ahead, Al.
Mr. Duffy?
You're up.
It's been addressed. I'd like to direct all further questions to the treasurer.
Any,
I didn't see anything questionable.
no, I did those yesterday. All right, and may I have a motion to approve the claims and warrants?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to to authorize Mayor Byers or his designee to sign a shared service fueling agreement with the Northeast Joint Fire District and the Webster Central School District. I believe, as I read this, this runs through 2025, is it?
Yes, December 31st, 2025.
Right.
Well, then
Pardon?
But,
it has additional 5-year renewal periods unless someone gives notice saying we went out. So,
mhm.
so it's more than a 5.
So that would go through 2030.
It will
It
go
could.
forever.
It could go.
It says the agreement shall continue for additional 5-year periods. It doesn't say 3 5-year periods, it just says additional 5-year periods. So it goes from now through eternity unless somebody decides to cancel it.
There you go.
That's a long time.
You gotta give 30 days prior notice.
Should make Clancy happy.
Yeah.
So I guess on the anniversary date after the first 5 years,
You can make a decision.
you make it
as to whether
30 days notice
go on for the
and
next.
get out of this.
Administrative fees will be 2% per gallon. The actual number of gallons dispensed during the billing period.
Good job, Jake.
Okay. Well, time for a motion to approve authorization, my authorization to sign this agreement.
I'll
make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, there is a resolution to authorize the village clerk to attend 2019 Nikon Fall Training School, September 16th through the 20th, at a cost not to exceed $1,812.28.
Where is it?
I'm sorry, I forgot to
Saratoga.
put that in there. I
Saratoga again, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I looked at the agenda for that training school, and it is extensive. I think there's about 4 to 5 different sessions going on.
There's
today.
just so many things that change yearly, that it's important.
So this year, instead of trying to go around and get all the agendas in packets, I realized they post it online. So I have to do that.
Okay, then.
You never have enough information.
Oh, that is something you probably don't somewhere.
Yeah.
You need to go. They post it all online.
Sarah, where are you
I'm
staying?
sure that it's,
The Hyatt?
I'm not sure whatever the host was. I think it was, is that what it was?
Marriott.
No,
Marriott.
he's just, yeah.
Beverly Marriott.
I think it's at the Hilton in
Hilton.
Saratoga.
Yes,
Springs.
Helen, thank you.
There's not a Marriott.
registering early.
Yeah.
There's a Hilton, there's a
On the
Holiday
north
Inn.
end there is.
It's a Holiday Inn.
You gonna come, Don?
No?
Oh.
No. You think stay at a Marriott?
No, there's a Hilton and a Holiday Inn. There's a Holiday Inn at one end and the Hilton's at the other end of the road.
Up on the hill there?
Yes. That's a Hilton.
Well, we will expect a full report.
We're going there. huh?
Yes, sir.
So I have before us a resolution to authorize the village clerk to attend the fall training.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have a motion or resolution to authorize the village clerk to receive 3 weeks of vacation as opposed to 2 weeks.
What?
remember, we instituted this, was it 6 years ago?
Yeah,
At least it
yeah.
was. And
Yes.
John
Yes.
rescinded that, and so,
Although you
this
all
is-
must have agreed to it, you can't just unilaterally rescind a policy.
don't have to have unilateral agreement, you have to have a majority of it. So,
But,
I don't know if that
But
was
at least-
really,
The majority.
yeah, he couldn't do it on his own.
There you go.
he could not.
I couldn't remember why it was in there for just a year and then it was taken out.
And that was his decision that he pushed on.
Yeah.
And it really was something that we talked about in terms of the amount of work that was put in and a number of weeks of vacation that was allowed, so. This is, again, before the board, and I would ask for,
Well, Heather, are you proposing this as to amend the policy for vacation time as you
I was
proposed?
gonna bring it up after that I'll pass this out. To put that back in. Obviously, I won't get additional ones, I'm already getting it. Do that. To put that back in for the village clerk, the DPW superintendent, and the treasurer.
It just seems to me that if you do it, if the board is inclined, or at least the majority of the board is inclined to amend the policy to put that back in there. And the reason it was put in there in the first place was because at one time, the three department heads, I'll say, you know, were able to get comp time, and then there came a time when comp time went away. So to acknowledge that they generally work more than 40 hours, and they can't get comp time because they're salaried employees, that was the reason why the additional week was put in there in the first place.
Yep.
And then it disappeared. But I think it's reasonable to put it back in there. And then if you, then Heather's really, you know, then pursuant to the policy, she would get the additional week. Rather than set a precedent and just do it, you know, ad hoc, employee by employee, I think if you do it pursuant to a policy, it just, to me, is a better procedure
Makes more sense.
than doing it individually. Because then you're sort of doing it for the position, not just
Yeah,
for the
because
person.
it wasn't, it's, yes, it should be on
Yeah.
3 this way.
Trey, did you have that week taken away?
No, and that's what I
Because
got
I
on here. I
thought
wanted
there was
to
compensation.
make a point, is the board did a resolution last year, I believe, or in 17, that authorized, based on a hiring contract or understanding for its hire date, authorized me. So I would ask that, you know, I'd like an extra week of vacation. I don't think I have time to fit it in, so might as well take the DPW superintendent off of this policy, because my situation, at least for now, has been addressed through a resolution of the board that gets me that I get an extra week above this schedule that's on here. Yeah, it is, through the board resolution. No. I don't think so. That's what it-
Oh, and you said you were the assistant DPW superintendent, right?
What I was just saying to Jake is, if the contract or agreement that you made with Jake is simply with Jake, then the next DPW superintendent of public works would have to have another contract, but if you put it in this particular policy, it would be for
Exactly, and then it's
perpetuity.
done.
Yeah.
You could, and the way it's got, may receive an additional week, not shall receive, so it's discretionary anyhow. So if you ask for that extra week, Jake, they'd probably tell you no, because you already got it.
That's good.
So I
Yeah.
agree with Will, just
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
it in,
Yes.
leave the superintendent of public works in there.
Yes.
In the event that Jake's no longer the superintendent of public
Right.
works.
Right.
And then there was one other thing that we had discussed. Don,
Of the accumulation of,
because because we are the last ones that are allowed to take vacation, our staff goes first. We had said that instead of being able to carry over 1 week, we should be able to carry over an additional week. To protect, it's on the next page. Okay. It was just for discussion. It was on the next page of this policy. Because we don't have visibility, we don't have, if something were to happen to me, I can only carry over 1 week. The original idea of it was so that we're not paying out a ton of, and we're not asking for that, we're just saying that those 3 non-exempt employees are able to carry over an additional week.
So you can carry over however.
Yes, well, we can carry over more, so 2 total.
Well, with respect to that, I think we need to have a maximum amount that they can accrue them, because at the time, when somebody leaves, you have to pay that out in cash. And if they carry over 2 weeks for the next 20 years, you're looking at
Yeah.
a big chunk of dough that you gotta pay the person when they leave. So it should be, if you wanna carry up to 2 weeks with a maximum
Oh, okay.
accrual of
Yes.
X weeks,
Well,
whatever it is.
I think the way that it works out with carrying care over 1 week, basically, that extra week every year, the motion carryover is a week. So
Yeah.
at the end of, on your anniversary date, you can have 40 hours before you get your next
Oh.
bit of vacation time or allotment of vacation time. So it doesn't accrue over time, it's just, instead of 40 hours, it would be 80 hours.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Right, you can't, yes, exactly. Yeah, you're still gonna lose them, but you
Yeah,
can
it's a
always
use or
keep 2.
lose.
Well, I don't know what the current, I don't have the current policy in front of me.
That's it, just I added that section.
Well, so that's a little, it's ambiguous. If that's the intent of it, what you said,
Yes.
Jake, that's not what, you can interpret this that you can carry over 5 days vacation time every year, and that nothing, it never goes away. You just keep adding that 5
Yes, we
days
just wanna
every year.
make it so we can only carry over 2, not every time.
Well, no, but
roll it over.
there should still be a maximum accrual
Exactly.
for all employees, whether you want a different maximum for the non-supervisory employees versus the supervisory employees, that's fine, but there still should be a maximum, because the way this is phrased, there is no maximum. You just keep carrying over 5 days every year.
No, we don't want it like that. That wasn't the intent, I apologize.
I understand that.
Well,
And
we
you did,
get it.
if the, the way it's worded now, it should be clarified.
Okay,
There should be maximums for
oh,
everything.
that makes sense.
It's like you said, the county has a
So it
maximum,
says
right?
carry over into the next year, more than 5 days.
Yes, the county has a max. You're able to, you can't carry over more than like 120 hours total. Like, once you hit that, you can't accrue anymore. So that's what kind of,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, then that's the language we need.
okay.
So that it's clear.
Yeah.
Write it up, Don, write it up.
Yeah.
Heather and I will write it up.
All right, perfect, appreciate it. All right.
But, so you could sort of put on hold that section, but if you wanted to amend the policy just to add that additional week for the clerk, treasurer, and DPW superintendent.
Right. Get that part of it done, and then you guys write it up, and then we can.
You don't have to do it today either, 'cause you're not intending to take the extra week next week, are you? Right?
No,
Well, okay.
I'm done. I don't have any other vacation plans.
Because it's supposed to be on your anniversary date, which I believe you said was in November. So as long as it gets adopted between now and then, right?
Yes.
You can carry it up.
So why don't Heather and I, we'll
Yeah.
work on the other part, and maybe at the next meeting in 2 weeks, you can consider
I like that.
So should we table that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's good.
thank you. Thank you, Don.
I'll entertain a motion to table this discussion until the next board meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
I,
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Don?
I have nothing to add other than to thank the board for reappointing me as attorney for the Village of Webster. I thoroughly enjoy working with you all and serving the residents of the village.
that is a very good speech.
Thank you for your service.
I like working with you, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even
Well.
as many times as I call you?
Doesn't matter. Call it often as you want. And you can tell Marcia the same thing. She has questions.
I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, it's good to see you at the helm, Daryl. So glad that you're doing so much better.
Thank you.
I can
Good
see
to be back.
Your cognitive skills are working and your humor is there, so.
Good to be back. Don's a little bit.
I also appreciate the fact that you reappointed Don, so it's been fun. The other good thing is our treasurer, our new treasurer, who's not here right now, she's had 2 days of living next to me, and she's still here. That is a plus.
But she did say she's redecorating.
That's right. So, but you have the report in front of you. We had a total of 16 permits this past month. So we're fast approaching our 100 mark, which is good. As I said, the last time we were together. Couple items just to bring your attention. Al pointed out to me that 174 Champions on here, it was a copy and paste thing, but he might as well stay on there because he's got 30 days to get his garage fixed. And I fully anticipate that he won't, but we'll see. 175 Iroquois Street, I come across these every now and then. I kind of wish we had some type of registry, but it's another house that is vacant and is currently under a maintenance company, which I have all the information, so it's added to my files of vacant homes. So we're keeping an eye on that, and they received a letter because their garage door is wide open and they've got rubbish, you know, they have
It's
all sitting out front there. The other one there, 109 Iroquois Street, I've been after her for a long time, so this time is the end, so. The other thing I want to point out is we had 2 certificates of occupancy issued. 44 East Main Street, which was the old, it's funny to say it that way, where the OTB was Rock, Soul, and Fitness. They added a cycle fitness room in there, and I guess there's smoke and mirrors and all kinds of fun stuff. I don't know. I don't exercise, so if you see me running, follow me. 32 East Main Street, Chandelier's Boutique, that was the other one. It's interesting, and it was asked, the question was asked, you know, what's happening with JoJo's, and they've applied for sign permits already, but they wanted to, the contractors that are working for Charlie Fitzsimmons, they wanted to concentrate on all the other little shops and get those out of the way first, and now they're going gangbusters on JoJo's.
Yeah.
I think they're aggressively looking at August, but I think responsibly they'll be seeing September. I don't know, but it looks really neat. They had a brick pizza oven in there, so, and they've added where the Chinese #1 was, and so it's much bigger, and they do good work. And like I said
That's where the
before,
brick oven
I
is.
can't see enough. What's that, sir?
That's where the brick oven is.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And so I found it interesting that when I was leaving from the inspection, it was that like brutal day that we had, you know, with the like 90% humidity, whatever it was. I'm walking down and I'm just noticing, you know, it's funny when you are walking down Main Street and I see the new shops
Yeah.
and everything. I'm like, man, this
We're
is
looking
awesome.
good.
I felt like I was like in Pittsburgh or actually maybe
Yeah.
Park Avenue or something like that.
Yeah.
But it just, the way they did it, I mean, it not only does it beautify the commercial business district, but it's still, the way they did it still fits in with the village feel. So I thought they did a great job. Also, in one of the things that's going to be coming before the planning board next month are the Knights of Columbus. Apparently their neighbor to the south of them is rescinding their drive-through agreement that they had.
Really?
So, what they're going to be coming to planning for is, it was interesting, the original site plan for the Knights of Columbus showed parking all the way around the building. But the planning board made the decision that they wanted the back area green space. And so that's how it was passed. So now what they're going to be doing is they're coming back to planning now through need to see about getting the parking in there that they originally proposed in the
Yeah.
first site.
I had talked to David over there, and it's been very difficult.
Yeah.
Parking for a variety of things he's had going on there. They want a green space.
Yeah, that was,
That was it?
is that Charlie Griffith's time?
Yeah.
Maybe?
That was
But, yeah, so, but, they're a good organization, they do good
Yes.
things.
Yes.
The only thing I scratch my head at is they have a money in, money out policy, so they don't have a line item for capital improvements kind of thing, so this will be interesting. But they have a lot of good connections, so it should work
When
out
are they going to be on the planning board?
this month, or this coming month.
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
And the only other thing I would say is I had a good time at Jazz Fest. Did you make it to Jazz Fest?
Very good.
Yeah.
My compliments to the DPW for a fine setup there, and
Oh, wow.
fine setup and recovery.
Yeah, the
And,
recovery part.
recovery was awesome.
Amazing,
Super well done.
absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe
that's a
get
good,
with that.
maybe that's a good segue to the DPW.
What's the status of 79
The outside is unmowed and it's due, again, not now, very soon. But we've been tied up on this gutter project this week, so once that's done, we should have some time to really part of next week to.
Yeah.
Also 95, I believe.
90, across the street?
Yeah.
Yes, they received a letter.
Yeah.
96, 98 South Avenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that particular property, whenever I've sent letters in the past, even though public comment is over, but I'll answer your question anyway. The owner has been great to come in and address the problem to me directly and take care of it. I'm thinking something's wrong, something's going on. He lives in the city, Conkey Avenue, I think it is. And so something else is happening that we're not aware of. Otherwise, I know it would have been taken care of by now.
He didn't mow the first time when we sent the letter, but we sent one grass notice a year and instruct the residents or the property owners and that we're not sending another one. So there's the rule, there's the code, you know, we send out a letter, they mowed it the first time, and then now, after that, when it gets to be, it's gotta be 10 inches, and then we can go over there and mow it. It's unfortunate, we've got enough to do, and frankly, it's a waste of their money to have us do it, because we charged years ago, people used to use this as a lawn mowing service, because it was just time and material. Now there's a $300 minimum charge. I know they could call, pick up the phone, get somebody to do it for $50. So, I try, if I have a contact for somebody, I try everything I can do not to do it, because like I said, we got enough stuff to do.
But it's been a while.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will.
Yep, you're welcome, thank you. Sorry I didn't have the mic on, I didn't realize it was off.
I was wondering though, before we go on, 24, 26, and 28 Reynolds,
Yes.
is there something that landed there that they all re-roofed?
Well, I think, well, they're townhouses, right? And so, that area, which is the plan unit development, which is what, Village Walk,
Yeah.
you know, they're all part of that one area, the homeowners association, typically they'll hire a contractor to do everybody's roofs and things like that, but those are all townhouses, so it was one building, but 3 separate tax IDs.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll move on. Yeah.
Trustee Lauer stole some of my thunder, but I didn't have a note here to thank the bid. And Tom Spoonower, probably especially, I know he worked really hard on the Jazz Fest, and our DPW personnel. The guys did a great job there, and getting that set up pretty quick and torn down really quick, especially when it started to rain. We tried to get it done before the rain, but definitely before the lightning with those big towers that were in the center of the street. They did a great job, and a couple put in really long hours to support that function, but it was a nice event. And that's the other thing I have here is just a heads up, I guess, that we've been approached by a company. I think they've talked to us before, but it's Tower Point Communications, about potential to lease the cell tower. So buy out the leases basically for the cell tower. So I shared the contact and the information with Donna. We're kind of just getting some more information from the company, that there'll be more on that coming up soon. I think that's it, and we're staying busy when it's not raining. Simply stopped for a little bit, so we did gutters on Curtis Park today. Residents have continued to be great over there. I think I drove by, there was one car way at the end of the street, way out of the way. I haven't had a lot of phone calls or complaints. Some of these are communicating on the front side pretty well, and that's nice. They've been very helpful, and we can get the disruption over and get their streets and street and driveway back to normal. That's it.
And I want to thank you guys too, because they worked on that lot that's next to the museum. First they had it all cleaned out, now they did all the yard work all the way around, so it looks great.
Yeah.
It's nice to sit on my porch with my glass of wine and be able to look over there. It's all neat and clean now.
There's wine on your porch?
It's always.
Everybody's welcome. Yep.
We'll be hearing more about the lease buyout, right?
What's it?
A
Yes.
little bit more.
Yeah, I expect as there's more information, then there'll be something to present. They did send over some information with I guess you'd call it an option that they would have done. But there was some confusing language that Don pointed out, or some stipulations and other releases that would have prevented the exercise of that option, I think. So we sent that back to them for some further discussion, and then also, the option that they had, didn't contain the wording of the lease, so it's a little hard to say, hey, we'll give you an option to lease this, and you have it for 6 months, this option open, without knowing what's in the lease. That's a little difficult sometimes. So I think we just need to get some more information from them.
All right, thank you. We'll be waiting to hear what they have to say. Anything for sewer?
No, not this time, everything's flowing well. We did have a, Xerox, I think I've talked to maybe some of you individually, but gave you updates, but Xerox did have a spill drain out of one of their chillers or boiler systems, or a chiller system, I guess it would be, that resulted in some antifreeze going to the plant. Well, it was an undetermined amount of time, but it was estimated in probably a couple-day period, or at least a full day period. It was about 70% water, 30% antifreeze, and it was a little over 2,000 gallons total. So it was about 600 gallons, but it went through. There was higher BOD levels of that, but it's nothing that it didn't seem to have any ill effect on the plant at all. So we continue to monitor it and work with them. They're working to determine how this got, and put some engineering controls and some measures in place to kind of make sure it doesn't happen again. Shouldn't happen. Their security's trying to figure out what exactly happened, because there was just a drain that was cracked open. And that shouldn't have happened. They actually figured it out when the machine was overheating, I guess. So started getting alarms because things were informed, so hey, what's going on? And that's but they've been working and providing information to us to make this. We've been sure to have, their partners at the town and the DEC as well, so.
All right. Well, I would announce now that there's no village workshop. That the next one has been canceled. The village board meeting next will be August 8th, 2019, and of course, followed up August 22nd, 2019, our second meeting of August. Again, that is subject to change without notice, and there's no other comment or questions or anything further. I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming, and we will see you next board meeting, August 8th.
Let's go drink wine and do sports.
Yeah, it's close by.
Within walking distance.
Whew.